Chapter 20. Cave. Just before the avalanche dumped its massive load of snow and ice at the foot of the mountain, Proskov spotted a narrow fissure that opened into the base of the rock wall. "My colonel!" he called to Tarosh. "This way!" He reached back and grabbed Tarosh by the shoulders, throwing him inside the fissure, then diving in after him. Kovici, Callahan, and Benson all managed to make it inside as the first huge chunks of ice began to fall around them. Mendoza, the last one in, got caught outside the fissure by an ice chunk the size of a boulder. It struck him on his left side and rolled off, but not before shattering his legs and hip bone. He fell down screaming into the snow and would have died there if Benson had not gone out and dragged him back inside the fissure along with the others. The roar of the avalanche drowned out all other sounds, even Mendoza's high-pitched, piercing screams of agony. When the fury of the avalanche finally ceased, the fissure entrance was blocked to the chest, leveled by fallen snow and ice. As the other men began to dig their way out, Mendoza lay moaning on the ice-covered rock floor of the fissure. "Madre de Dios," he groaned. "Mother of God, pray for me. Oh, it hurts. Ow." Callahan, wheezing for breath, as he helped clear the entrance, stopped what he was doing and turned to Mendoza. "Shut up!" he shouted at him. "Quit whining, goddammit!" "He's in great pain," Tarosh said. "Show some sympathy." When they finally finished clearing the entrance and stepped outside, they found that the avalanche had dumped most of its debris across the plain of the base of the mountain, forming a gradually descending slope like a new section of foothill. The trail up the mountains, while littered with fallen snow and ice, remained passable for the most part. "Good," Tarosh said, nodding with satisfaction. "We can still climb up this way. The Grushka has gone." Piercing screams burst from Mendoza again as Callahan and Benson came out of the fissure, carrying his broken body between them, shattered legs trailing uselessly across the snow. "Ah! Ow!" Kovici winced at the sound of Mendoza's screams. "You sure you guys should be moving him like that?" he asked. "What the hell do you want us to do?" Callahan said, breathing hard as they set down the body. "Leave him here to just goddamn die?" The other men walked over to when Mendoza lay on the snow, his screams subsiding gradually to guttural moans. Blood had begun to seep through the legs of his thermal suit, staining the snow beneath them bright red. "He's hurt bad," Benson said, trying to catch his breath. "Yes," Tarosh agreed. "My legs!" Mendoza gritted his teeth. "Madre de Dios! Oh, my legs! Owie, ow, 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 ow!" "His legs are all smashed up," Benson said. "What the hell do we do with him now?" Callahan asked. "We don't even have a goddamn stretcher to carry him back to Deep Core. Not that there's anything to go back to." "Yes," Tarosh said. "And if we were to let 2 men try to evacuate him, that would only leave 3 of us to follow the trail of the deserters." "So what do you want to do with him?" Callahan asked again. Tarosh nodded to Proskov, who took out his Makarov and fired 2 shots in the back of Mendoza's head. Blood and brains splattered the recently fallen snow. His body jerked once, and then shuddered, then lay still. "Jesus!" Kovici muttered, stepping back. Callahan, visibly shaken, turned to Tarosh. "What the hell did you do that for?" "He wasn't useful to us, Tom. He couldn't walk. He needed medical attention. Useless things must be cast aside." Benson swallowed. Gulp. "At least he's out of pain now." "Yes, George, exactly. He's no longer suffering." Tarosh turned away from the broken body. Don't we at least want to bury him? Callahan asked. If you feel so inclined, Tom, there's plenty of snow. The deafening roar cut him short, bouncing off the base of the mountain, carrying with it gusts of warm, fetid breath. All 5 men looked up to see the Tyrannosaur towering above them, standing high on a mound of fallen snow and ice, clouds of hot vapor billowing from its huge, lethal jaws. Holy Jesus! Benson whispered. Holy Jesus! Benson whispered. Back inside the fissure! Tarosh ordered his men. As they scrambled for the opening in the rock wall, casting terrified glances behind them, the Tyrannosaur leaped down from the mound with great agility of a great hunting bird, huge talons scattering loose snow and ice before it. Kovici slipped outside the fissure and fell to his knees. The Tyrannosaur moved down towards him, jaws gaping wide. Kovici covered his head with his hands and screamed, "Ah!" The creature snapped up Mendoza's dead body, seizing it in its massive jaws and bolting it down whole. Kovici remained on his knees, head covered, screaming, "Yeah! Inside, you fool!" Tarosh shouted, "While there's still time." Kovici, still stunned, lowered his hands. The Tyrannosaur twisted its head and lunged at him. Kovici screamed again, "Ah!" and began crawling towards the fissure on his hands and knees, scrambling over ice and snow. He made it inside just before the great jaws reached him. The Tyrannosaur slammed its head into the fissure entrance, knocking the men inside off their feet, filling the narrow opening with the hot stench of recently swallowed human flesh. It roared in angry frustration, the noise deafening inside the narrow rock wall enclosure. It snapped its powerful jaws open and shut, ngang, 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 large curved fangs, grinding together with brute clashing sounds of tremendous steel spikes driven hard, one against the other. The 5 men crawled all the way back to the end of the dark fissure, where they cowered like rats in a trap. "Who's in you, moi?" Prozac crossed himself. "God save me!" Tarosh pressed his back flat against the icy fissure wall. Kovici whimpered, hiding his head in his hands again. Benson and Callahan sat motionless, mute with terror. After one last great roar of frustration that rattled the bones of the men inside the fissure, the Tyrannosaur withdrew its huge jaws from the entrance and moved off, hot breath chuffing noisily into the frigid Antarctic air. Several seconds passed while the beast snorted outside. Inside, the 5 men sat motionless, not daring to even stand up, let alone walk to the entrance and look out. After more time had passed, the chuffing sound seemed to withdraw into the distance, followed by a trumpeting roar that echoed back from the ice-bound face of the mountainside. Proskov moved forward, cautiously, keeping low to the floor of the fissure. Reaching the entrance, he peered outside. A startled look crossed his face as he watched the Tyrannosaur leaping nimbly up the snow-filled trail above them, like a gigantic roadrunner, long tail held erect, powerful muscles rippling beneath the taut, leathery skin. "My colonel!" Proskov cried, turning back to him. "The monster climbs trail of Grushka and the deserters." Tarosh nodded, blood flowing down his face from the newly reopened scalp wound. "Yes, Dmitri. But sir," Proskov continued, returning to the end of the fissure, still crouching because of the low ceiling. "You say that something that big could not possibly climb." "Not now, Dmitri. I'm trying to think." Proskov nodded and fell silent, taking a seat beside him. No noise could be heard within the dark fissure now, except for the distant howling of the wind outside and the labored, anxious breathing of the 5 frightened men. Callahan broke the silence first. "What do we do now? Stay in here till we starve to death?" "Shut up, Tom," Tarosh said. "No, you shut up. Some leader you are. If you think..." Proskov reached inside his thermal suit, where he carried his Makarov in a shoulder holster. He pulled out the gun and pointed it at Callahan's head. I'm sure you want to apologize, Tom, Tarosh said. Callahan drew back, keeping silent. Proskov cocked the hammer of the gun. Okay, I'm sorry. Apology accepted, Tarosh said, then nodded to Proskov, who uncocked the Makarov and put it away. Now then, Tarosh continued, we obviously cannot remain here very long, nor can we go back. The creature's reappearance has complicated things, admittedly, but it might still work for our advantage. How? Benson asked. Tarosh smiled, bloody face glistening in the dim light. The creature is still quite valuable, dead or alive. Our means of recapturing him at present are severely limited. But once we have the girl, perhaps... He turned to Broskov. Dmitri, sir, save the remaining Weatherby cartridges for the creature. We can take care of Darrow with the Makarovs. How much rifle ammunition do you have left? An extra full clip, sir. You can't kill that damn thing. Rewind. You can't kill that damn thing with a rifle, Callahan said, then quickly added, Sir, perhaps not, Tom, but the other contingencies could come into play. Another avalanche started deliberately this time might prove highly effective as a means of immobilizing the creature, or even killing him. Or us. We barely survived the last one. Yes, Tom, but the point is, we did survive. The creature might not be so lucky. And even if fewer of us survived the second avalanche deliberately started, even if one of us only survived, that man would win a prize worth many times the risk. Suicide, Callahan muttered under his breath. Benson and Kovici both appeared to agree with him. But the sight of Proskov reaching inside his thermal suit again and resting his hand on the Makarov seemed to make them suddenly unwillingly to share their opinions. It took a great deal of time and effort for Troy and Kelly to clear away the recently fallen snow and ice from the cave entrance, and even after they had finished, much debris fell from the avalanche still remained inside the cave itself. But the labor involved in the cleanup seemed worthwhile. The cave was large for a naturally occurring one, with a ceiling that allowed them to stand without stooping. Tiny crevices further back from the entrance let in small amounts of wind and snow along the fresh air, but the interior seemed warm overall and reasonably dry. Because no animals lived in the mountains of the peninsula, except for seabirds nesting on peaks, the cave was free of bones or droppings left behind from a former occupant. Once inside, Troy unstrapped his backpack and set it on the cave floor, where he began taking out wads of waste paper and placing them on top of a compact butane stove. What's that for? Kelly asked. Fire. Why don't you use the butane cylinders? Isn't that what we brought them for? Yeah, but I want to save those. For what? You never know. After Troy got the fire started, Kelly took off her mittens and warmed her hands above the flames. God, that feels good, she said. I thought I'd never get warm again. How long can we stay here, Troy? This is just temporary, like spending a night at a motel. I could stay here for weeks. I'm sure you could, but by then, we'd be out of food and starving. There's nothing to kill and eat up here, except for that horrid dog. She shivered and drew closer to the flames. I think he'd be hard to kill, Troy said. Besides, we only have one bullet left. Where did he come from? I thought you said the T-Rex killed all the Huskies at Deep Core Station. He did, as far as I know. But Tarosh must have had one separate from the rest, trained as an attack dog. It looks like he starved him to death. He probably did. Huskies aren't normally vicious by nature, but they can be made that way. Kelly looked up at the cave entrance. You think that dog's still around here? I don't know. But wherever he is, Tarosh and his men can't be far behind. Unless they got caught in the avalanche. Wishful thinking, Kelly. She studied her hands in front of the flames. If you only have one bullet left, what happens if they catch up with us? One bullet is still one bullet. Besides, they don't know how many we have left. And we also have this. He picked up his ice axe, its curved pick on one side, head of the axe and sharp spike on the other. These axes might turn out to be more useful than the gun. which mainly seems good for starting avalanches. Kelly shivered again, remembering that was close. She got up from the fire and moved over to her backpack. "What do you need?" "Food," she said, digging through the backpack. "I want to see if we can heat some of that freeze-dried powder up and make it taste almost edible." So you think you're that good of a cook, huh?" "Damn good." "Great, I'll just sit here and watch." "Like hell, you can be my assistant. Catch." She tossed him a lightweight aluminum bowl. "Go get some snow so we can melt it over the fire. This package says if you just add water, it turns into soup." Troy got up and walked over to the cave entrance, where he leaned down and scooped up a bowl full of snow and ice from the avalanche debris that still remained outside. He felt the breath, hot with the stench of decaying flesh, even before he heard the ear-shattering roar. The bowl of snow and ice dropped from his hand. He looked up to see the Tyrannosaur lunging at him, jaws wide, fangs large, sharp, and murderous. And he ate Troy, and that is the end. I am just kidding. Ha ha ha. He could hear Kelly scream as he fell backwards, sprawling across the cave floor, scrambling around the fire. The Tyrannosaur thrust its huge head inside the cave, stopping short of the fire that burned near the entrance. The great beast roared at the flames, scattering wads of burning paper across the icy rock floor. Troy grabbed an ice axe and used the spike to spear one of the burning wads. Then he held it out in front of him like a torch and thrust it at the Tyrannosaur's gaping jaws. The beast pulled back as it felt the heat inside its mouth. It roared in rage, but kept its distance. Troy moved forward and thrust again with the burning axe. Hissing clouds of vapor, the beast withdrew from his cave. Troy stood there with the axe handle raised in front of him as he watched the Tyrannosaur move back from the cave and over a huge pile of avalanche debris, making its way towards the other part of the mountainside. The wad of burning paper broke loose from the spike and fell in a shower of glowing embers down to the cave floor. Kelly came up beside him and put a hand on his shoulder. "Looks like you just lost your fire," she said. "Yeah, I better go get some more in case he comes back." He poked at the dying embers on top of the stove. "So much for our home-cooked meal," Kelly said. "Don't worry, I've got more paper. I'll get another one started in a few minutes." "How do you think he got all the way up here?" "Climbed like everyone else." "He didn't seem to recognize me He heard her voice catch and looked up to see a tear trickling slowly down her cheek. "Come on, Kelly. All babies grow up, even baby dinosaurs." "I still don't want him to get hurt." "I wasn't trying to hurt him, but I don't want him coming inside the cave and eating me or you." "He must be starved. He doesn't have any food up here." "There's always Tarosh." "Troy, I'm serious." "So am I. If the T-Rex made a snack out of Tarosh and his boys, that would be the best break that ever happened to us. We'd still have the T-Rex himself to worry about until, he got hungry again, but we could deal with that somehow." A menacing growl sounded from outside the cave, followed by the loud, aggressive barking of a husky. Troy looked up. Kelly's fingers tightened on his arm. "It's that killer dog," she said. "He's come back!" Troy reached into the side pocket of his thermal suit and drew out the Makarov. He took off the safety and raised the automatic, gripping it with both hands. "Get behind me," he said to Kelly. Then, as if to himself, he whispered, "One bullet left." Kelly, stepping back, stared out the cave entrance at the blinding white landscape of the mountainside, expecting any second to see Grushka appear in all his malevolence. The dog leaped out suddenly from behind a mound of snow and ice and came rushing at them, his coat matted and filthy, clouds of vapor puffing from his open jaws. Kelly started to draw back instinctively. Then a smile broke across her face. Woof! And that is the end of Chapter 20.